Good evening. Welcome to another episode of OmenG's Stupid Scary Stories. Tonight I'll be reading from Connecticut Ghost Stories and Legends by Thomas D'Agostino and Arlene Nicholson. Tonight's terrifying tale Daniel Benton Homestead. Love is said to be eternal. Proof of that may be witnessed at the Daniel Benton homestead in Holland. Several ghosts have haunted the home for more than 200 years. Two of them are said to be young lovers who were separated by war and disease and life, and a carriage path in death. This next account is full of history, mystery, and investigations that will leave you, the reader, wanting to fully absorb the centuries of life that still linger in this famous historic landmark. In 1720, Daniel Benton built the colonial cape the same year Holland became established as a town. The home was a bit more extravagant than most would have built at that time in the colonies. Many homes had but one or two rooms, where a large central fireplace heated the area, as well as provided ample space for cooking and baking. As usual, the bed would be placed in a corner of the great room, and linens would enclose it in order to keep the cold bite of winter or the itchy bite of summer pests at bay. As time marched on, these houses were expanded to keep up with the eras and growth of families. Mr. Benton had a son who served in the French and Indian War. He also had 3 grandsons who answered the call to arms during the Revolutionary War. One of his grandsons, young Elisha Benton, had fallen in love with Jemima Barrows, a woman almost 11 years his junior. Elisha was born on August 9th, 1748, and Jemima was born on March 28th, 1759. Historians say that the relationship was doomed from the beginning, not necessarily due to the age difference so much, but because she was born of a different class than Elisha. Her father was a cabinet maker, and not as well-to-do as the Benton family. Still, Elisha promised his heart to her and swore he would return for her hand in marriage. With that, Daniel's 3 grandsons set off to fight for the independence of the colonies. Unfortunately, all 3 were captured by the British and put onto prison ships anchored just off the shore of Brooklyn, New York. Elisha, captured during the Battle of Long Island, was left to endure the brutal conditions aboard one of these ships from August 27th, 1776 until January 3rd, 1777. Sanitary conditions were unbearable, and the scanty rations of food were rotten and rodent infested. The 3 brothers came down with smallpox while imprisoned within the holds of these vessels. Back in Holland, Mr. Benton received word of the deaths of 2 grandchildren from smallpox while on the prison ships, but there was no word of his favorite, Elisha. Unfortunately, Daniel Benton died just shortly before the news of Elisha's freedom came to his door. Elisha was subsequently traded for another British prisoner and allowed to return home. Regrettably, his condition was grave from the smallpox he had contracted. The family, although elated by his return, had no choice but to quarantine the young man as smallpox in those days was quite deadly. They made a wall between where he lay and the rest of the house in the hopes of containing the deadly virus. Jemima had heard the news of her lover's return and swiftly made her way to the Benton home. There she saw Elisha, on his deathbed, suffering with fever and fading fast. She refused to leave his side, nursing him and feeding him, knowing full well that she could soon suffer the same fate. Her parents came to comfort the Bentons and were shocked when they saw Jemima by Elisha's bed. They also feared she would soon fall victim to the fatal disease and refused to go near her. The threat of contagion left them with no choice but to leave her at the side of her betrothed. That would be the last time she would ever see her parents again in life. A few weeks later, on January 21st, 1777, Elisha died. The family actually removed him through the window beside the bed so as not to spread any germs from the deadly affliction through the home. On February 28th, 1777, just a little over a month after Elisha's passing, Jemima succumbed to the dreadful disease. Her fate was not so comforting, as she died alone, with no one brave enough to care for her. Since they were not married, it was forbidden for them to be buried side by side. Elisha was buried next to the carriage road leading to the back of the home. Jemima was buried on the opposite side of the carriage trail that ran along the property about 40 feet from Elisha. Even in death, they would not be joined. These two graves can be seen to this day in the front yard next to the stone fence. Inquiries as to why they were buried in that particular spot have resulted in shrugged shoulders and a reply of bewilderment in regard to the odd nature of the location. One would conclude that it would have been customary to bury them in the family burial ground, but instead the two lie and repose on either side of the little path. In some cases, families buried those who died of contagious disease outside of the family burial yards. They feared the diseased body could somehow infect them when paying their respects at the graveyard. The home remained in the Benton family for 6 generations until Flory Bishop Bowering purchased the property in 1934. Bowering restored the home to its original colonial splendor while living there with a handyman and maid. In 1969, it was handed over to the Tolland Historical Society. There are still some Benton family members who may reside within the walls of the structure, along with what many believe are the spirits of Hessian soldiers who were held at the house after the Battle of Saratoga. Being close to the Boston Post Road, the home was a perfect location to hold the captured mercenaries. The food was good and there was plenty to go around, and the house had a large fireplace to keep warm. The soldiers were well cared for. It is no wonder many of them stayed in Tolland after their release. It is also no wonder a few of them stayed in the home after their release from their mortal chains. Bowering's maid often witnessed the specter of a young woman in what appeared to be a bridal gown wandering through the house, weeping. Others, through the years, have seen this same specter. A woman and her friend, who were writing a college paper on the Benton haunts, saw the same ghostly image in the room next to them. When one of the women set out into the room to encounter the spirit, the entity vanished. Neighbors once stayed at the house while theirs was being renovated. One evening, they saw the fireplace in the living room begin to glow as if there were a crackling fire within the chamber. They also heard footsteps coming down the hall, followed by a loud thud. The supernatural phenomenon lasted for nearly moments. Then all was quiet except for the frightened guests hastily retreating out the door. Some claim to have felt a pervading sadness while viewing the graves of Elisha and Jemima, and have even felt the hair on their necks and arms stand up as if they were being watched by an ethereal being. A man and woman staying at the house had an unusual encounter. The woman awoke in the night to find a strange-looking man in colonial garb motioning toward her. The figure then cupped his hand over her mouth. She wrestled his hand away, and the wraith vanished. She then looked over at her husband, who was still asleep. Was it a dream, or was she really awake when the occurrence took place? Either way, it was quite an unsettling experience for her. Neighbors have seen lights flickering and figures moving about the homestead long after everyone has left, locked the place up, and activated the alarms. Many have also seen the shade of a colonial soldier standing at the front door. Some say it is the ghost of Elisha looking for his true love, while others seem to think it might be one of the Hessian soldiers who once stayed at the home. Cold spots and voices are also common in the basement, as that was where the 18 Hessian prisoners and 2 officers were held. The 3rd floor is home to ghostly footsteps that can be heard at all times of the day and night. The haunting goes back to when the first generation of Bentons lived there, shortly after Elisha and Jemima died. With so many stories being chronicled through the centuries, it is no wonder that John Zontok and the Northwest Connecticut Paranormal Society had to check out the abode for themselves. The group spent 5 nights in the home and recorded countless hours of video and audio, as well as hundreds of pictures. They heard a lot of strange noises, but were able to explain some of the weird occurrences as natural and not paranormal. Some, on the other hand, could not be passed off as natural or normal. In the end, Zontok told me that they had caught a few EVPs that made them wonder and had photographed what appears to be a colonial soldier looking out of the window. One of the EVPs was of a strange dialect. The word "wordig" was translated from a northern German dialect as basically meaning worthiness in the military. The other EVP they got, Ryan, may have been Rhine, possibly meaning the Rhine land where the Hessian soldiers had come from. As for the figure in the window, the director of the Benton Homestead, Gail White, studied the picture and simply said that it was Elisha. The NWCPS is a very well-trained and organized group that investigates in a professional and thorough manner. Its members are highly recommended in their field. Their evidence is quite convincing that the Benton Homestead is still alive with the past. Arlene and I visited the homestead on a Sunday in September. The director was not there, but the home was open for tours nonetheless. We immediately began snapping pictures and recording for voices. The rooms were of equal temperature. The EMF meter never gave any sign of activity. The marks on the floor were still visible where the Benton family had erected a wall to quarantine Elisha from spreading the dreaded smallpox. The house seemed rather pleasant to be in, and we were very happy that we had taken the time to trek out to town to tour the haunted historic site. Although we did not capture any paranormal evidence, we cannot dispute the centuries of those who have seen the ghosts and heard their noisy rambles at the homestead. Take a tour of the home. If you see someone dressed in period clothing, chances are that it is not a tour guide, or at least not from this side. Now, think what you will. Think what you will. But when I heard that there was a potential that I may see a tour guide from the other side. Of course, I was intrigued. It's things like this that I like to seek out in my paranormal travels. It's good tea. Even with all the encounters with demons and the fucking stories that I hear from Rosmal and all the messed up things that he's done to all these different places, I still enter into each one with an optimism unlike you would expect. Now remember, even though I've seen plenty to satisfy the fact that paranormal does exist, I still go into every situation skeptical, because just because it does exist doesn't mean that it exists everywhere people say that it exists at. You know what I'm saying? They could just be saying it because, like I told you, with a lot of these places, nobody wants to stay at an old time bed and breakfast that might be haunted and shit, because then it's just a creepy old bed and breakfast. But slap haunted, true ghosts on creepy bed and breakfast, then it's a haunted bed and breakfast. And people will actually pay you good money to stay at a haunted bed and breakfast, and maybe nothing ever happens, right? Maybe nothing ever happens, but you're paying them extra money for the chance that something might happen. And if these people are really, about their shit, they might have some special little tricks up their sleeve. A shadow projector, maybe a smoke machine hidden in a wall somewhere to make mist float out of a wall, and the person thinks they're seeing a ghost. So, people keep coming there, and they don't really give a fuck about staying there. They just stay there for the chance of seeing, some haunting shit. And you don't do it in all the rooms every time. You alternate the shit around. You get what I'm saying? I remember me and Jane had the demon fights thing going for a little while. Yeah, so we learned about a lot of how you make shit look paranormal and supernatural to keep suckers coming in. So yeah, that's how I was feeling when I went to the Homestead of Daniel Benton, right? Because I've already been to like 2 other bed and breakfasts already, and like I said, for the most part, they were boring. See, I was about to smush all that together because that's why I wanted to get the fact that it was boring out of my mouth real fast. So yeah, it was boring. Most of the things that I've done in these past 2 little gold bed and breakfasts, noise in the attic, it's always the same. Attic in the basement. A little bit of shit happening in the rooms in the main house, some stuff on the stairs, but for the most part, it's always attics and basements. And I started wondering, why is it always attics and basements? So, you find out that back in the time before they had, electricity and shit, attics and basements were mostly used for like storage of bodies from time to time, depending on the time of year it was, and also for like storage of food cellar. Especially during the wintertime, your cellar was cold. You weren't putting a fireplace down there to keep shit in the basement warm. For what purpose? You didn't do that. You just had shelves and shit like that. And see, down in the basement, in the cellars, you could keep, supplies and foods and things. Same thing with the attic, right? But you're probably saying, but what does that have to do with why these areas are most haunted? Because of the storage of bodies. During the wintertime, when the ground was frozen, somebody died, they obviously wasn't gonna break their ancient shovels on some frozen ground. So what would happen is you'd either be kept in the basement or the attic, depending on, like, your people's house setup. So that's why there's lots of spirits in basements and attics, why there's a whole lot going on as far as, like, residual spiritual energy. The rest of the house is just like residuals of residuals. So it's just like, if you spilled some juice on the floor and you, like, wiped up the main spill, but there was a little bit left over from the spill, that's kind of like what that energy around the house is like. You get what I'm saying? If you're following me. Right? So anyway, go to this bed and breakfast once again, not expecting much of anything except for what I've heard, which is about the walkway to the burying grounds for the families. So I want to go firsthand and get a feel on the energy there, right? Now, what I see is something I didn't hear in any of the stories that I read about this place. I saw the spirit of Elisha. How do I know it was his spirit? Because it came up from where his headstone was. Rose up out of the ground and it just stood there, looking all miserable and shit. Miserable, right? He looked over at me. I'm wondering if he notices me standing there. And then I'm thinking, probably, because it's always my dumbass luck that some ghost notices me and either has questions about whether I can help it do something, or I get taken on some wacky adventure. I'm hoping neither of those two things is the case at this moment, right now, So what happened, right? What happened is that he spoke to me. He said, "You there?" I said, "Me here?" "Yes, you there. Who are you? What is your name?" I said, "My name is Reese. I'm a traveler. I seek out paranormal and supernatural things and stuff. Hunt demons, slay them. And, look for ghosts, doing ghost stuff. Who are you?" I mean, I already knew the answer to the question, but I figured, since he's asking me questions, I might as well ask him questions. Maybe this is how he likes to do things. "So who are you?" He's like, "I am Elisha. Benton. This is my home. I was off fighting for our independence. Captured in a battle. For Long Island I was. They sent me, along with two of my brothers, to a ship in the harbor. There we languished for almost a year. My brothers, I heard them die. They cried out for our mother, for our father, for our family. They did, but they would never see them alive again. I thought maybe this would be the same thing for me, that my life here would end upon this ship. I would never see my lovely Jemima again. As terrifying as that sounded, my prayers were answered. I was happy, for I was going to be released to see my family once again. But unfortunately, I was stricken with the illness of the pox of the small. Yes, the pox small they were called. Why, I don't know. There was larger ones, we were not aware of them at the time. But the smallpox I had. To my family I went, quarantined I was. They built a wall in the house to stop everyone from being near me. But my Jemima, lovely as she was, she would not hear any of it. She stood by my side. She fed me, she nursed me, Although I was doomed to die, she was with me until the very end. I remember I said to her, and with as much strength as I could muster at the time, I was very, very weak. I said, "Go, you must. Not stay here with me. You will certainly doom yourself to death. I don't want that for you, please. No one will take care of you like you have taken care of me. We should get married before I die." And I died before we got a chance to be married. It was terrible. My spirit hung on, because I watched her fall ill from the very disease that she tried to help me with, even though there was no cure. And I watched her suffer. No one would feed her. No one would comfort her. I had to do it, but she could not take comfort in knowing anything except for that in death she would join me in death. And I figured my family would do right by us. They knew the love we had for one another. But no. I did not expect to be buried with the family. I knew that having died of smallpox, that I would be banished from the rest. I was okay with this. I figured they would remember that in death, you bury the loved ones together. When they put my beloved across the path from me, I was angered beyond all anger. I jumped from my grave. "How dare you!" I screamed and I wailed. The inhabitants of the home, they don't tell this piece of history. No. They don't tell this piece of history? Never. They don't like to talk about the day that Elisha had his revenge. Had his revenge, he did. You had your revenge, you did. How? When I tried to see my Jemima, I found that her soul had passed on. See, she had fulfilled and done what she had put her mind to do before her death, which was to be with me until the end of my life. She fulfilled that and she was allowed to pass on. But me, no! I'm stuck here because I could not do the one thing that I tried to do, which was comfort her in her moment of need. I was merely a ghost and could not comfort her, so therefore I am damned. Damned! I took my revenge on my family. As they would near the top of the steps, I'd jump out. Boo! I'd scream loudly. They'd fall down the stairs. Sometimes they'd break bones. Other times they'd just fall ridiculously, hitting the bottom, landing ever so swiftly on the floor below. I'd laugh, a ghostly laugh. They'd hear this laugh. They'd understand this laugh. They'd know this laugh. For many years, I did these things, till finally, one day, one of them died. Broke their neck on the way down the stairs. This time I had pushed. My energy had gotten stronger. Down the stairs I pushed him. I forget who it was. But dead he is. Stuck in the house. His soul, it is. That evening, this man was going to meet his wife for an evening of fun. He had vowed, that he was going to satisfy his little woman. Well, of course, he wasn't able to do so because he died on his way up the stairs thanks to me pushing him down the stairs and him snapping his neck. So he never got to satisfy anything. Therefore, his soul is stuck here with mine. Yes. You know, I totally kind of feel where you're coming from. I mean, if you're gonna be here stuck and shit, might as well have somebody with you and shit. Hope you're not thinking of trying anything funny with me, buddy, because I'm not staying here any longer than I have to, so I won't be going in near any stairs or any kind of shit that you might try to fuck up so I get stuck here. Besides, got my blessed oil. Splash some of that on me real quick, just in case you happen to be from the dark side. I'm not quite sure. I mean, you've been here for quite some time, seeking revenge on your family, which isn't a good thing. It's not like they killed you. You know what I'm saying? You got yourself killed. If you think about it, you joined the fucking Continental Army. That was strike one, right? Went off to war, strike two. And you got captured. Strike three, you're out. When you caught smallpox, smallpox was your death sentence. You only caught that because you joined the military, fought in the war, and got captured. So, how was that your family's fault? It wasn't their fault for the damn way I died, damn it. I never said that. No, you didn't. That's true. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said all that fucked up shit that I just said. But explain to me why you seek revenge on them. What was the revenge for? For them not burying me with my beloved. She passed on. And I couldn't be with her. But you do kind of realize, right? Like, okay, bam. Even if y'all were buried together, she was still gonna pass on and go away from where you're at. Like, you wouldn't even been able to chill with her. Because you died before her, so you're already dead before she dies, right? And you're stuck here. So, how is... You know what I'm saying? Like, what you're saying doesn't make any sense, Ghost. What you're saying doesn't make any sense, Ghost. Like, you're just upset and angry, and your, attack on your family has probably helped damn you to being stuck here and shit. Now, maybe we can try to work out some shit here and possibly, perhaps, get you a ticket from not being stuck here. Does that sound like maybe a thing you might want to pursue? And to what end shall this serve me? You won't be stuck at this house. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to go to heaven. I don't know what type of stuff you did in your life before you got captured. Just because you were a Continental soldier and you loved this woman doesn't mean that you weren't some kind of a fucking dick or a fucking piece of shit. You might have been both of those things, and that could be why you're stuck here. I mean, like, how do I know that you weren't like the mad teabagger, right? You know what I'm saying? British soldier, be hurt and shit, and you're running around dunking Continental balls in their mouths while they're suffering from gunshot wounds and shit. That could have been you. I'm not saying that that's who you were, but I'm just saying that could have been you. So I don't know. I might do what I do, and you might get sent straight to hell. Then you gotta deal with Satan and shit, and Satan's not the type of dude, beast, demon, master that you want to be fucking with. Trust me, I know. Trust me, I know. I don't care. I'll take my chances. The last time I had to deal with one of you old-timey English people that did some crazy-ass shit, I watched one of you become a demon. I have him in a jar, too. His name is Rex. Also have another demon in a jar. His name is Roswell. Now, I'm going to tell you right now. I'm going to help you do this, get you to the other side shit. But, for 1 second, I feel like you might be on some craziness. You might want to try to take me with you or curse me or some shit. I've got a jar here, just for you. I'll suck your soul into this jar, and you'll be trapped in the jar. You'll do what I say when I say do it. But most of the time you'll just be in this jar. And I'll stick you in all types of fucking really fucked up places. And I'll make it a small jar. You know what I'm saying? A small jar. So it'll be like living in a really cramped ass apartment with no space to move around. And you'll not like it in the jar. So think about this that I'm speaking to you about before you do any dumb shit. Got my candles out, set them up on the table and stuff, lit them, began saying prayers and shit, different chants, and you know the light starts to flicker, get really bright, shining. The portal tears open in the middle of the table. Whoosh, energy, light, air, sounds, you know, all the stuff that you would associate with a portal tearing open in front of your face. You know what I'm saying? Not a huge portal, but big enough. So like, he's standing there and he's thinking to himself, oh shit, this dude is really about what he says he's about. The power. The portal is here. Yes. Now, I told him before all shit was about to go down what not to do. Try to change his mind and shit. Because, you know, the portal will know which way to go. It's just an opening. Where its destination ends up being depends on the content of your character. He didn't seem to understand what I meant by this, which is not my fucking problem, right? All of a sudden, as this portal's open, all the other ghosts and haunting shit, I was in this Daniel Benton fucking house, starts popping out the fucking walls. Like the Hessian soldiers that were held there, that everybody thinks were treated so nicely. No, they weren't. Oh yeah, they just loved being prisoners in Tolland. Oh yeah, they loved it, right? Fucking Hessians. You know what I'm saying? It'd be one thing. It was different if you were a fucking Brit. You understand what I'm saying? A Brit, and you got caught by like some loyalists or some patriots per se, continental soldiers. You could fake it. You know what I'm saying? You're like, oh, I'm like you guys was pretending to be British, trying to catch some British people. But if you're a German who's there fighting for the British, how does that sound? Like, you really think that the American people, when they caught these fuckers, were gonna treat them with any kind of fucking respect? And who was gonna govern it? They were mercenaries, hired guns. So trust me when I tell you the historical records of these well-treated Hessian soldiers and officers. But yet, no, their spirits still inhabit this place, right? So they lived there willingly until they died? No, that's not what happened, folks. As these Hessian soldiers are popping up out of the woodwork and shit because they sense this portal being opened and they just want to go home. Now, they weren't evil. They weren't evil at all. They were just soldiers. Soldiers who were paid to go fight a war that they didn't care anything about. They didn't give two shits what side they were fighting for. Whoever paid the fucking purse was the one that they fought for and whose cause they found just. Because they just wanted to get paid. And they were fierce fighters. Yes. Oh, yes. They were the type that liked to take trophies. Now, mind you, these Hessians, they ain't been in lots of wars. You know, their country has been several different countries. And now it's this country, which would go on to be a country that would fight in numerous wars and had been fighting in numerous wars for quite some time. Not always on the winning end of it, but that doesn't matter. It still breeds fighters, nonetheless. Fighters. Skilled soldiers. Combat experience. Readiness. A readiness that most new militiamen were not ready to see. These Hessian mercenaries would bring wrath battle cries. They would scream for blood as if they were monsters. Stories were told of the Hessians riding through a town, chopping off the heads of all the colonial people that lived there. Now, is this true? Probably not. But this is how propaganda worked back then. You get what I'm saying? All you had to do was tell somebody some shit about some small made-up settlement. It doesn't even have to be like a whole bunch of fucking people in the settlement, right? Could have been a settlement of 5 people. You just find 5 undesirables, hack them to pieces and shit, blame it on the Hessians, bring forth some evidence, which could just be a couple of arms and a leg, maybe a head or a dead body, whatever. And you say, look what they did. These Hessians, they kill men, women, and children. Unarmed men. Well, they should be killing men anyway, but just, they're killing unarmed men. Women and children. They're murderous, villainous beasts. Right? So, word spread about these Hessian mercenaries. Word spread fast throughout the colonies, especially in New England. Right? Especially in New England. Because it was said that the fucking Hessians were just fucking murderous. Like, they would kill anything and anybody. Now, it is true fact, according to documents that I found, that they did kill Tories, which were British sympathizers. But in their opinion, they were pieces of shit. They're just sitting there saying, oh, we don't agree with the Continental Army, but we're not going to take up arms ourselves and get rid of these damn, patriots and shit. We're just going to live here and stay neutral. No. The Hessians didn't see that as fulfilling your duty to your king, and they would slaughter whole communities of Tories, which is where the stories came from that they were just killing, regular colonists. That wasn't true. So see, the Patriots twisted the story around, said that the killing of the Tories was really the killing of Patriots, which got more Patriots angry. So when they did capture a small group of these Hessian soldiers, what happened next was terrible for those Hessian soldiers. It was said that they were fed some of the best meals prisoners could have. Yeah, that's if you enjoy eating other fucking prisoners. First it started off with the British officers. They cooked them first, alive, in big pots. They boiled them, right? Now, of course, they didn't do this above ground for all the people in the town to see. Only a select few people got to see this. The Bentons being some of those people. The basement of his home being where they would cook these people alive. Like a big pot, like a cauldron, like a big old witch's cauldron. And they would stick them in there and put this heavy lid on top, almost like a pressure cooker back then, because, the steam inside and the heaviness of the lid would keep, the shit from popping on top. And they would have to, get 2 men to put a stick through and pick this shit up to lift the top up. But this is how they cooked them. Alive. Oh, God. You had to hear them screaming for a little while. Bloody hell. Oh, blimey. Blimey. It was terrible. So they cooked the 4, British officers. They fed them to the Hessians. Now, at first, the Hessians didn't care that they were eating these fucking British soldiers. They didn't give a shit. These fucking Hessians were savages. They were savages. They were war-hungry, battle-tested, crazed savages. It wasn't until they were starting to realize that no more food was coming. It was winter at this point, and it was a really harsh winter. And because of the war, a lot of the farmers didn't have enough crops to feed their communities entirely. So, some sacrifices had to be made. And they decided that they were no longer going to feed prisoners of war. Oh yeah, some of the greatest treatment prisoners of war I've ever gotten was in Tallinn. No, it wasn't. So, they're not feeding these Hessians anymore, people. They still gave them shelter and shit, and that didn't cost anything. There wasn't nothing to, throw a couple extra logs on the fire, so they didn't freeze to death. But as far as being fed, nope. They figured what would happen is by the end of winter, they'd all just be dead. They'd have starved to death, and that'll be the end of it. That's not what happened. It's not what happened. Every time one would become weak, they had these little regiments, systems, and games they came up with. Like, they'd all wake up, and the last one to wake up was usually dinner for the rest of them, for as long as that meat would last. So that's where it began, with who woke up first. And see, what you would do is, as you woke up, you would move to one corner of this room. Another one would wake up and see you, and he would move to the same corner as you. And this would continue on, and for the most part, everybody who would wake up would stand in the same corner as the rest of those who had awoken. On a few occasions, some would stand on the opposite side, and then there would be small fights between the two groups that stood apart from each other, but usually they already had the meat that they were going to eat for the day for the rest of them. Now, this went on until there was only 3 of them left. Winter was almost over. These 3 dudes had been fed lovely. Oh God, they've eaten lovely. They're 3 of the strongest dudes out of this whole group. One Hessian is like 5 militiamen. Now, in their current state, these Hessians are fucking way stronger than they normally would be. Psychologically, they've been broken and remanded, branded into these sociopathic, psychopathic beasts, which don't give 2 shits about themselves, nonetheless anything that they consider less than themselves, which is anything besides themselves. So one day, they're looking at each other, and they know sooner or later, only one of them will be left. That's how they had trained their minds. Last one to wake up, first one to die. So it got to a point where the 3 of them would sleep in different corners of the area they were left in. And they would wake up, usually all at the same time, and they'd look at each other, just waiting for that instance. Now this went on for weeks. None of them were slipping. Right? So one day, not thinking about them, because they hadn't for a while, the person that checks on them from time to time decides, I'm gonna go check on them after like 3 months. Winter's almost over. Let's check on see if we have to dig some graves. He was surprised to go in there and find the 3 of them still alive. The bones of the others neatly stacked, rib cages and heads and arms, and all nice and neat, and just stacked in a corner. It was very nice, the way they kept things clean and tidy. They looked at this person, human being. They were no longer human beings. They were beasts, feral, evil, man-eating beasts. They looked at this little man, just so happened to be a descendant of the Bentons. Don't remember which one it was. Anyway, he stood there in surprise. There's 3 of them alive, he's thinking to himself. Of course, he's also thinking, well, winter's over, just about. they've served their time, right? Didn't we say like a year they'd be killed, and then that would be that? So, right, this is all what I'm seeing while I'm sitting in front of this portal that I've opened up for the Hessians to leave through, and I only see the 3 bodies of the Hessians pop up so far. And from what I understand, the story that they told me, when they were let free, they immediately turned on the man that opened the, cell for them, beat him down to a pulp, tore him to pieces, ate him. They were a little upset about it. He didn't have the same taste that they were grown used to, which was human fed human. You understand what I'm saying? So it's like, just didn't taste the same to them. This was like free range meat, and it was too gamey. So they weren't too happy about this. They were upset after they had beat this guy down and ate him. His son or father, maybe it was his brother, somebody came looking for him. When they came, obviously they saw the 3 Hessians, bloody faces, crouched over what remained of the body. An alarm was sounded, which was basically the guy yelling top of his lungs, "Hear ye! Hear ye! We have a murder! Murder!" He's screaming and yelling. The Hessians don't really understand what he's saying too much, because not only do they not really speak English, mostly German, they have been locked away in this basement eating the fuck out of each other for the past, like 4 or 5 months. So they're not really too up on communicating, especially with people they can't understand. So they're just looking at each other like, right? So it's at this point I see that telltale swirl of smoke coming up from the center of where these 3 Hessians are standing. And of course, it's Rosimund. Now, I didn't bring Rosimund with me, so I couldn't ask him why he's here. But what I see him doing is just wafting into the face of each one of these Hessians, and they sit there dumbfounded for a little while, staring at each other. Then all of a sudden, one of them swings at the other, and a fight breaks out. They're beating the shit out of each other for a little while. The townspeople come, they see these 3 Hessians there, bloody, dead, Benton child on the ground, and they slaughter them. I mean, they weren't like superhuman, so a few bullets, and they were able to kill these Hessian guys who had otherwise almost escaped, and would have escaped. They just left, and Rosimund didn't somehow convince them to beat the shit out of each other for that small period of time. Anyway, they were then dragged into the basement of the home, Benton's, where they were, imprisoned for all this time, and they were chopped up, made into a giant stew, which they then fed upon, because they themselves had also ran out of some essential foods. Winter was rough for everybody, like I said. That's why they stopped feeding them. So they ate of the meat of the Hessian soldiers, and they put their bones in with the rest of the bones from the Hessians that ate the other Hessians. And they never spoke of this to anybody. They kept, this a secret. They buried the bones. Actually, they didn't bury the bones anyway. They ground the bones into a fine dust, almost like pumice. And they used it mixed in with other things like manure and shit. And they used it to fertilize their next season's crops, which actually grew pretty good, thanks to the dead mineral and stuff in the bones. So, in stories, there's always the story of the Hessian soldiers having been treated so well, and then you wonder to yourself after you read this shit about the big loose end there. It's like, why are their spirits still here if they themselves were treated so well? They would have eventually been freed and left. Well, I'm telling you why they never got freed and left and why their spirits are still there. And if you don't want to believe what I'm telling you, well then, oh well, you don't have to believe what I'm telling you, but come to your own conclusion. If you're such a happy spirit, why not just pass on? And why would a mercenary fighting on the side of the British, doesn't speak any English, get caught by some fucking patriots and be treated kindly when they were treating their own sympathizers amongst them terribly? They're gonna treat some fucking German goddamn mercenaries nicely? No, it's not gonna happen like that. It's not gonna happen like that. Anyway, so, the portal's open. Elisha jumps through it. I don't know where he ends up. These Hessian soldiers whose bones and stuff have been pummeled into dust and scattered about the farmland, they jump through it, don't know where they're going, don't care. Then there's this one last spirit that's like reluctant. He acts like he wants to go in, but he doesn't want to go in. I'm looking and I recognize who it is. You know what I'm saying? It's one of the other people that Elisha tricked into falling down the stairs or pushed down the stairs. So he's stuck there, but he's kind of dense, so he's a dunce, right? Somehow he still feels like he's living his life. And I ask him, how many days have you been doing the same thing? Walking up these stairs, only to fall down these stairs. You don't seem to notice that you do this every day and have been doing this every day for close to 300 fucking years? I tried to push him into the portal because just the whole thought of him doing this every single day, several times a day, for 300 fucking years, it was making me mad just thinking about it. As if it was me, up some stairs, fall back down the stairs, go back up the stairs, fall back down the stairs, go back up the stairs, fall back down the stairs, go back up the stairs, fall back down the stairs. I would fucking flip the fuck out. I would flip the fuck out. I would flip the fuck out. I chop off my own legs. I chopped them off, right? You know what I'm saying? There's no way I'm gonna keep walking up these stairs just to fall back down these stairs. Chop, no more legs. Guess what? Not walking up no fucking stairs without no fucking legs. How about that, bitch? How about that, perpetuality? Huh? You gonna make me walk up some stairs with some goddamn nubs now, motherfucker? No, you can't do it. Ha 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 ha. And then my legs will just grow back. At least that's probably what happened to him. I don't know. Because that's what I would have done to myself. If I was, cursed or damned to continuously walk up some stairs just to fall down and bust my ass, I'd chop my legs off. But that's not the point. The point is I tried to push his ass into the portal. He, swung around. No! I don't go in there. And I fell halfway into the portal. When I do this, I see this crazy world. Looks like hell in a jar, because there was a clear barrier which is holding all this fiery evil inside of it, and outside of the inside of this fiery evil was this beautiful blue oasis. Looked like paradise, but you had to get out the jar first. I snuck back in. Thank goodness I didn't fall into this jar of evil, whatever the fuck it was. And I thought, is that what it's like for Rosimo in the jar that I have him in? Probably not. Probably even boringer for him, because this had people swirling around. Help us! You know what I'm saying? And I couldn't help them because I wasn't trying to fall in there. Anyway, make a long story short, I finally pushed this jackass into the portal. He goes wherever he's supposed to go. I don't know. Can't really say that I care. But what ends up happening is that what ends up happening is that I closed this portal, right? I've freed as many as the spirits there that I feel I can safely do so without causing any permanent damage to happen on this plane of reality, right? Now remember, we can't leave these things open for too long because then, demons will come through them and I'll have to fight with them. So it was imperative that I got this thing closed when I did, which is why I did. Now, of course, after this is all done, I sit down and I reflect on what potential morals there could be in situations such as the one that I've just experienced. What I can say is never, ever go to a bed and breakfast. It's 3 bed and breakfasts in a row. You know what I'm saying? Don't go to bed and breakfasts. Because it's like I told you. Either there's just some person who owns this old ass shit, and to avoid having to fix it up to modern day standards, they sell you this line of bullshit that it's a haunted bed and breakfast, and if we try to fix it up to code, the ghost will be angry. Oh! Fuck you, bullshit. You're paying all this money for them to leave it, subpar. The lights are flickering. The lights are fucking flickering because the wiring is old, jackasses. Is probably about to have a fucking fire in your wall. And you'll see smoke coming from the wall and be like, oh my god, honey, look, there's spirits coming from the wall. No, it's not spirits coming from the wall, Tom. That's called an electrical fire behind the wall. We should get the fuck out of here before we die. Because I'm pretty sure, since they're trying to go for the old-timey charm, they don't have any fucking smoke detectors to warn us there's a fire in here. So let's go, Tom, now. That's why you don't go to these fucking bed and breakfasts. And if the bed and breakfast is extremely nice and extremely modern day, well then it's just an Airbnb. And who the fuck wants to spend money to stay at a place somebody else might have stayed at, this some fucked up crazy shit, then the owner comes there unexpected. You're not expecting him to come, but he comes there unexpectedly, kicks down the door, starts yelling at you people because maybe you're having a good fucking time in his Airbnb, and it's not a bed and breakfast. Big difference between an Airbnb and a bed and breakfast. Okay, big difference. No one goes to an Airbnb because they're looking for haunted shit. Okay, you go to a bed and breakfast because you're looking for some quaint New England old-timey charm with a couple of ghost stories attached to the side of it. You know what I'm saying? That's why you do that. Paying money to basically go stay at a relative's house. That's kind of like what the whole bread and breakfast feel is. Once you open that door, you're succumbed to the whims and fancies of everybody else. And what if the person who runs the bed and breakfast happens to be one of those people that likes to get up fucking early as fuck in the morning, right? And let's say their room is right down the stairs or hall from your room, right? And they get up and they're the farting type. So they wake up in the morning, they're walking down the hallway, just blowing fucking farts. Loud, fucking nasty milk farts, right? And you know that these farts are gonna clog up the hallway, which you have to walk through now because you're awake and you have to pee. And you know that this person has fucking crop dusted The whole hallway. The whole hallway has been crop dusted. So you already know that if they're crop dusting the hallway, what are they gonna do in the bathroom? What are they gonna do in the bathroom? Oh, you already know what they're gonna do in the bathroom. They're gonna blow that shit up. Blow that shit up. And they're gonna pack it with so much shit, right? Because they're just those kind of gross ass people that it's one of them kind that when you flush it, it's so much of it, it smears itself on the inside of the fucking toilet. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Y'all know what I'm talking about. And you go in there, right? After this person has dropped logs, crop dusted the whole hallway. So you gotta walk out into this stink. You see them as you're walking to the bathroom and they walk by. Like, it's fucking hilarious. Like, cause, you know, it's funny to them because they know. They know right now that you're having trouble breathing. You're trying to decide, do I breathe in through my nose and have to smell this shit? Or do I breathe in through my mouth and potentially have to taste it? Because it smells so bad. It smells so bad that it probably tastes bad. It probably doesn't taste like shit at all. But you don't want to know this. You don't want to know this. You grab and put your shirt over your face like this. You're breathing. You got that nasty ass morning breath because you haven't brushed your teeth yet. You know what I'm saying? So like you're breathing in your own stank ass breath. Ah. So now you're just running to the bathroom. And this dude is laughing at you the whole way there. He's just chuckling about because he knows once you get in the bathroom, it's going to be even worse than what's going on in the hallway, right? So, of course, you close the door. You turn to go use the bathroom. Toilet. Lift the seat up. If you're a polite person, you don't want to pee on the seat, knowing that potentially just some women are going to have to use it. As soon as you lift up the toilet, what are you greeted by? Huh? What do you think you're greeted by? You're greeted by a fucking floater. He had so much that it didn't even all go down. Just like two little turds just floating there, saying, hello, how are you? We are a gift from the guest that just used the bathroom at this bed and breakfast before you entered the room. Flush us down. Now you're already mad about this shit because now there's somebody else's shit in the toilet that you need to use. And I don't know about you. I mean, we know that other people use the toilets in public fucking places. Obviously, I mean, public toilets. So we know this. But to have to witness, to have to actually see what gift was left for the toilet god by said guest after said guest has already left the gift, well, that's not something we want to see. Nobody wants to see what is actually gone into a toilet. Could you imagine? Could you imagine, like, if you were responsible for flushing the person before you used shit? Like, imagine if that's how the world worked. Like, that was just normal shit. Like, it wasn't surprising at all. Like, somebody comes out the bathroom and is like, hey, how you doing? You're like, hey, how you doing? It's like, oh, God, I really left a mess in there for you. Hope you don't mind. Nope, not at all. That's what we're here for. Flushing the shit from the guy before us. That's how the world goes around. Could you imagine that? That would be some crazy ass shit. Like, I wouldn't go to public bathrooms anymore if I had to be responsible for flushing down somebody else's nastiness. Because you never know. You never know. What if you get that person who's like really sick? They threw up and shit several times. Nasty, gross. And I wouldn't want somebody to have to flush the toilet after me, like on a day where I've decided that I don't care. I don't care that I'm lactose intolerant. I don't fucking care. I'm having everything dairy today. Everything dairy. And I do have everything dairy. We're talking about dairy in breakfast. Hot cocoa made with milk, Swiss Miss, and chocolate. Tasty. And just to add insult to injury, let's have a cup of honey milk to wash that down. Throughout the day, I'm having ice cream and cheese on sandwiches. Cheese just to be eating cheese, right? Have a baked potato, sour cream on it. And more cheese, right? Cheeseburger with extra cheese. Pizza with more cheese. and cheese on top of that cheese. And just all day long, have a big ass milkshake, right? Delicious. Chocolate, peanut butter, caramel with fudge and caramel and nuts and whipped cream. All over it, right? I'm not done yet. Okay? I have like 2 half pints or pints. I'm not sure if they're half pints or pints, but whatever you buy ice cream at when it's like Haagen-Dazs and Ben & Jerry's. Well, yeah, I've got like 2 strawberry cheesecakes, and I eat both of them, right? So I've eaten all this shit. Then on top of it, I'm not done, right? I'm not done. I decided I'm gonna have a big ass, humongous bowl of cereal with extra milk, because that means I can have extra cereal. So I've got all this dairy in my guts. And I'm lactose intolerant, so you already know. You already know what that means, people. Oh, God. The gas alone is terrible. Now, how does that fit in to the whole bed and breakfast thing? Well, that guy that crop dusted the hallway, you know what I'm saying? Shit and left floaters in the bathroom. Well, I found out what bed and breakfast he was going to be staying at next. Found out he's like me. He's a little, paranormal investigator and shit. Except he just does bed and breakfasts. I found out the next one he was going to, and I made sure I had one of those days where I overload the fucking shit on lactose products, milk, dairy products. Just had tons of dairy. So much dairy that I thought my stomach was going to explode. That's what I thought. I thought it was going to explode. I had hot gas. Oh, people, it was terrible. I thought for a small portion of the day that I potentially put a hole in the ozone layer because of the amount of gas that I was letting loose from myself. It was a lot of gas. I couldn't even stay in one room. It was that much gas. It would like fill the room to a point where carbon monoxide detectors would start going off. I would get scared and we'd leave the room for a little while, or crack a window, or light a match. Sometimes you gotta be careful about lighting a match though, because you get a flash fire. Shit just real quick, blaze of fire, and you're like, what the fuck happened? And you realize you filled the room with noxious fart gas, and that shit's gonna burn. But listen, right? So I found out where this dude was staying at. I told Razamul I was gonna get this guy back. So, obviously, I rented a room at this bed and breakfast before he got to the bed and breakfast. And having had all that fucking dairy, I just walked around this whole bed and breakfast upstairs, just letting loose silent, hot, lactose gas farts. I mean, they were so hot. I thought my pants were on fire. I'm not even joking with you. Like, I was scared. You know what I'm saying? You know how like when you stand in front of a heat vent and it's like, let's just say it's at your pants level, right? And somebody's got the heat on 80 and you're standing in front of this, your pants get hot. Well, that's how my pants felt. I felt like in a way I was wasting this good heat on a prank. I could have found some bums and we could have all like sat together in a small room and I could have just blasted them with hot farts and they would have been okay with it. They would have been okay with it because, it's heat. So it's kind of stinky, but you know what I'm saying? You're out in the cold, you're not thinking about it. You're just thinking about it's nice and hot. And it was, trust me, it was hot. So anyway, right? I'm letting this fucking hallway, these rooms and shit, I'm just farting them up. I'm walking, because there's no locks on a lot of these fucking bed and breakfasts. Like, the rooms have doors, but they can't lock, which is kind of weird because, I'm thinking to myself, Are these people just popping in the middle of the night, like watching you sleep and shit? Like, what if they do that? They probably do that. But this made it easier for me to just fart up every single room in this fucking place. So, right, finally, you know, he gets there. He doesn't see me yet, but he can smell me. Oh, he doesn't know it's me. Obviously, he smells. But what I'm saying is, he could smell it. There was no way you weren't smelling this god-awful stench from lactose farts. I mean, it was bad enough that I didn't even want to smell it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was getting to a point where I would leave my room, fart outside the room, like, do a little shake the fart off dance, go back in my room, Febreze the hell out the frontal doorway area, and, you know, spray some behind me just in case there was anything left. You guys know what you're saying. He's a nasty fucker. Yeah, I was. Now remember, there's only one bathroom at the end of the hall, right? I've been drinking and eating milk all day before, and all day this day. So, all of a sudden, I'm getting that stabbing, sharp pain in my stomach. The one that, when you get that first one, you know you have about 5 to 10 minutes, more along the lines of 5 minutes, to get your ass to a bathroom before the pain is so much you can't even walk to the bathroom. It'll hurt that bad. It'll feel like your asshole and your stomach are all just gonna rip all at once, just from, you can't tell which side. You don't know if it's gonna come from the ass side or from the front of your stomach through your mouth, but you just feel like you're gonna explode. And you just hope it explodes outwardly from where it's supposed to explode from, which is your ass. So, you know, when I feel this pain, I know to make my way to the bathroom. And I see, as I'm getting ready to go to the bathroom, I see this asshole, you know, Mr. Crop Dusting, Floater Leaving asshole, coming out of his room, right? And where does he think he's going? Oh, the bathroom. I think not, bitch. I think not. I see him eyeing me as I'm eyeing him and the bathroom door, which I'm closer to. He tries to make a quick move. Stick my foot out, trip him. He falls down on the floor. I run to the bathroom. Now at this point, there's no point in even like trying to hide what's going on. Besides, the pain was so much that I couldn't keep quiet. I started screaming. Well, not screaming, but grunting loudly. Oh, oh, oh. You would hear the farts, wet, moist splatterings into the water. Every now and then, it would sound like a chunk would be released from the pressures of gas and mud, but compounded behind it like a small rocket splashing into the toilet. Sploosh, right? You feel all the wet, cold water splash your butt cheeks. Now you're even more mad. But I was happy because I knew what I was leaving was going to be so nasty. It was going to be so gross and disgusting. And it was going to take at least 2 flushes. At least 2 flushes. 1 flush was just not gonna do it. That's how much it is, you know, every time I thought I was done, I would go to stand up and I would get that little stab in my stomach, like, sit your ass back down, motherfucker. What you doing? I sit right back down. Oh, I can hear him. Hey! There's only one bathroom here, buddy. What are you doing? What do you think I'm doing? Taking a shit. You're gonna have to wait your turn. Had a lot of dairy last night. Yeah, well, I gotta go to the bathroom, guy. I really gotta go. I don't have time to be waiting out here. I gotta go. You know, we have this dialogue back and forth through the fucking door of the bathroom, in the bed, and the breakfast for a little while, right? You know what I'm saying? Finally, the last assault from my stomach and intestines splashes forth from my butt cheeks, hits the toilet. I turn, close the lid, and press the handle. I hear the toilet struggling. It didn't make the telltale swish, flush, bubbly, bubbly sound. No. It made more of a gurgle, choke, gurgle, splosh. I didn't hear that sound that means I'm completely clear and ready for more. I walked out the door. I didn't even want to see. I said, have a nice time. And I walked into my room. He rushes in there, slams the door, lifts the toilet lid, and the first thing I hear him say is, "Oh, Jesus! Oh my God, fucking Jesus!" I don't know what exactly was left behind, but whatever it was terrible. I know the stench was, man. Needless to say, I didn't see the guy anymore that day or any other day since. The day I left, there was an ambulance, a couple of police. They were talking to the owner of the property. They wheeled out a body. Could have been the guy from the bathroom. I don't know. Like I said, I didn't see him anymore after that. Haven't heard anything about him. But then again, I don't go checking for this dude anyway, so, whatever. Well, I want to thank you all for joining me for another one of my stupid, scary stories. This one stayed in theme and had to do with bed and breakfasts. Although taking shits in bed and breakfasts probably doesn't really have much to do with ghosts in bed and breakfasts as much as... But it all was tied together in some way, shape, form, or fashion. Thank you. Tomorrow, I'll probably also be reading from Connecticut ghost stories and legends. So if you enjoy stories told from books that you could probably read yourself, but maybe you just like me reading them to you, well, by all means, hit the subscribe button. Give this video a like. And if you'd like to be notified when I present and post stories of paranormal and ghost nature, well, then hit the bell icon and you'll be notified when I do post stupid, scary stories or any other thing that I post on this channel, which right now is just stupid, scary stories and the occasional chilling with Omen. You all have good evening. Take care of yourselves and your loved ones. Make sure that you check the doors at night. And don't stay at bed and breakfasts, sis. You know what I'm saying? Because it's not worth it, man. You can find like a haunted place and don't have to spend that kind of money to stay at it. It's basically, that's like me starting a bed and breakfast here and be like, oh, I got the old-timey basement room. It's supposed to be this way, old and decrepit and shit, because, you're staying in a piece of history. This is what you're supposed to do. But there's a leak here. Yeah. It's just like, it was back in that day. If you want to get the feeling, that historical feeling, you got to stay in it as it was then. I know it has a leak, but that's historical leak. That leak is from history. It's a leak from time. Have a great evening, folks.